Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ASO Conversation series. I'm your host, Tom Moore. I am the Director of Marketing at the Akron Symphony, and our special guest today is Principal Harp Jody Guinn, who has been with the orchestra since 1984. Welcome, Jody. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. It's wonderful to be here this morning. I can't believe that, 1984. That's a long time ago.
So, speaking of that, since you mentioned you joined the orchestra in 1984, do you know, are you the most senior member of the orchestra, or close to being one of the most senior members?
I am close to being one of the most. I can't believe I'm actually saying that, but it is the truth. I auditioned that fall, 1984, and I know John Curtis, our principal timpanist, also came in that time. And yeah, I have a pretty funny story about my audition. Would you like to hear that?
Yes.
We're telling stories. There was a sign, a little tiny, piece of paper almost at CIM, where I had graduated in 1982 with my master's degree. And I was back here in the fall of '84 to continue studying with my teacher, Alice Shalafu. And I saw this little sign posted at CIM. Akron Symphony was holding an audition. So I drove on down there and played my audition. There were only 3 people who came. They were all from around here. And the lady came in, the personnel manager came in at the time. I think it was maybe the first audition I ever played for anybody. It was at Gazette Hall, and no screen, just playing. Well, maybe no, there was a screen, because I remember being a number. I was a number, and the personnel manager came out and said, number 99 is first harp and whatever, and I didn't believe her. And I sent her back 3 times. I argued with her and sent her back 3 times. I said, you can't possibly mean that. You got to go ask him again. So she came back and she said, nope, he wants you as first harp. And anyway, that's what happened to me. It was pretty funny. And also every time I see Mark, I have little brackets in my music for the Ravel Introduction and Allegro, Debussy Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, and the Brooke Scottish Fantasy. I had to play at least those 3 excerpts for my audition, and I still have Alan's markings in my music, so it always reminds me of that day. So I was okay.
So you were actually hired by music director Alan Balter. What was it like working with him?
You know, I listened to Jerry last night. He talked about how, scared he was. I was never afraid. It was my first time. So going into it, I just, tried to go by my teacher's advice. Always be prepared at the first rehearsal. Tune like crazy, and just, be ready to listen and learning how to have a connection with the conductor. And that's what I did, maybe without even knowing it. I know we had to play that first season. We had to play the Berlioz. We did Berlioz Symphony Fantastique, which was coming up with Chris this year, and then maybe next year, hopefully. And that's a staple in our repertoire, and a very difficult harp excerpt. All of us harpists grow up learning and having to play that cold. I remember my teacher in Camden, Maine, where I did a lot of summer studies, Miss Shalafu. When I learned orchestra parts with her one summer, I spent the whole summer doing a series of orchestral repertoire. She patted me on the shoulder and she said, "Dear, you're going to have to practice that scale every day for the rest of your life." So that was, I have done that, mostly. And are you okay there?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. And so anyway, I remember that season I had to play the Berlioz, and then I had a wonderful experience playing the Brooke Scottish Fantasy with famous violin player named Aaron Rosin. He just passed away last year, I found out. But I didn't know how lucky I was, because he was a big star at the time. So that was fun. that was a, trial by fire. I went into it. I remember I sat up real close to the conductor for that piece. That's kind of what you normally do in that piece. So I did.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your musical journey. How did you first get started playing an instrument? Did you start on the harp, or was there another instrument that you started with first? Kind of take us back to the beginning.
Okay, take us back to the beginning. Well, my dad, the beginning is my parents really are both musicians. Daddy's been gone for a long time, but my dad was a band director, and my mom was a general, she's still alive, but she, in her career, taught general music, public school music. They met at the Cincinnati Conservatory, and in fact, Cincinnati is where I was born. And Daddy being a band director and always having, sights set on moving forward and things, he got jobs, and then he was very good at building programs, and then he changed jobs. So as a youngster, I was moving around a lot. I think I went to 6 different elementary schools, and I went to 2 different high schools, largely due to my dad changing his work. So as a little kid, I was listening to a lot of marches. I was watching a lot of parades. I was learning Daddy was a piccolo player in the United States Marine Corps Band. And so I learned a lot about John Philip Sousa when I was very small. And I still can tap, that wasn't right, but I could still tap, the metronome marking of 120, because I learned that at a very young age. And I also learned beat patterns when I was little. Didn't really know what they were, but I knew that my dad was doing that. So it came very naturally. That's just what I did. I grew up with concerts and rehearsals, and weekends were involved in, band pre-games and pep band and everything you can imagine around the band field. So consequently, the flute landed in my hands, and I grew up playing the flute, and in fact played the flute all the way through college. My college was chosen, at the time I lived in Billings, Montana. When I graduated from high school, I chose Colorado State University as my college, because it had a marching band and it had a harp program. And anyway, I'll circle back to that in a little bit. So consequently, the apple did not fall far from the tree, and I grew up with music around me all the time. I really tried hard to think of something else to do. I really tried. In fact, I had my hand like this on the phone. I was going to apply for a job as a maid. And I decided that I wasn't going to call the RMI, and that I would keep working on the harp. And that's what happened. So I grew up with the flute and piccolo, and I did play. I've had wonderful experiences to this day. Well, not this summer, but I have had the privilege of playing at the Blossom Festival Band, which keeps the band part going. My dad would be really happy. Some of the wonderful experiences I've had and people I've been able to meet when I was littler, when I was a young child, I mean. My father knew Leonard Smith and Colonel Arnold Gabriel, who was the commander conductor of the United States Air Force Band. These were common household names, and the most famous of those was Meredith Wilson. Meredith became a friend of our family's, and I have a fun story of my father. At the time, was teaching at Rocky Mount College in Billings, Montana, and he invited Meredith Wilson to come to direct the band and conduct a bunch of activities for the band day. Band day in those days. Bands from all over, got together. So Dad had the bright idea of taking his band up to the airport in the old days when you could meet, people getting off the plane. Mm-hmm. And the Rocky Mount College band was standing in the foyer or in the lobby playing 76 trombones. And I was holding the music for the flute players because some of them didn't have it memorized, which is ironic because that is a storyline. If you know The Music Man, that's a storyline in The Music Man. So a lot of it kind of parallels. It's pretty funny. So, of course, there is a picture. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
myself holding the music, and then there's Meredith. And that was a really fun, wonderful memory for myself. And a few years ago, my mom and I took a road trip. We've been having lots of fun road trips in the summer. Under normal circumstances, we've been able to do that. It's been really great. I live with my mom. She's my 88-year-old roommate, 88 and doing great. We live on Music Street. So one of our fun things was to go out west, and we stopped by Mason City, Iowa, and visited Meredith Wilson's hometown and his house. And I took all my memorabilia. I have a little highlights book that he signed, and several big pictures of his, his press photo at the time to congratulate my dad and blah, blah, blah. And I took all those things with me. And for 5 minutes, I was like a star because they could not believe that somebody actually in the flesh knew him. He wrote us letters, my family. He just was, every time I see the Music Man, it just touches my heart because I just treasure that memory. It was really fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. So how did you end up playing the harp? I know we talked a little bit before, and you kind of told me an interesting story, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, along about, I wasn't very serious. My dad did give me some lessons, I think. The one story I do remember about the flute is that Daddy tried to teach me how to play vibrato, and I didn't quite understand his words, but one day he told me a long time ago, or he would tell the story, that I came down the stairs with my flute, and I said, Dad, is this the way you do vibrato? And I played it for him, and I was doing it, and so from that moment on, I played vibrato. And so Daddy knows and knew how much competition there was in flute playing, and he kind of elbowed me along the course of my life and said, honey, you might want to think about doing something different. So when he was had a position, this was before the Montana part, but actually the Montana part happened 3 times, so we moved back and forth. I have sort of a joke that when people ask me where I'm from, when I'm in Ohio, I say I'm from Montana. When I'm in Montana, I say I'm from Ohio. And it always stirs up a great conversation. So there you go. Dad told me when he was teaching that he heard a sound through a door one day at school at Ripe Day in Dayton. He knocked on the door and opened it. He thought it was a guitar, and it was a harp. And it turns out the professor in there, her daughter was giving some lessons in the summer, like a trial thing. And my parents said, oh, why don't you go do that? So I did that. Didn't really remember much about it, although I do have markings from the first teacher I had, and I played some of the pieces. But, she gave me the general background of how to play the instrument. The first, couple of years are really learning how to pluck and how to close your fingers and make the sound, rather than actually playing music. So my parents then, after my sophomore year, I had a couple of experiences. I played in the 5th orchestra in 9th grade. I didn't even know anything about anything. I had to play glissandos, which means you have to set the pedals a certain way. The harp has 7 pedals, and they make the glissando sound, which is the unique part about the harp. I didn't know much about plucking, but I knew how to count, or I tried to know how to count. I shouldn't say that very well because I'm still counting. I make mistakes all the time. Oh my gosh. I know Chris Wilkins is laughing if he's listening to this because I make mistakes counting. We all make mistakes counting, but I learned how to count. I count on my right knee and I do my fingers like this because that is very important, counting. So my parents bought a harp for me, an inexpensive kind of older instrument when we moved to Montana the last time, which was when my junior and senior year in high school. So when I got to Billings, I had no teacher. The closest teacher was 8 hours away in Missoula. So I do remember one time taking the instrument and myself, mom, and my dad up to a hotel room in halfway between, like in Butte or something, and having a lesson. but that's my only memory of studying or taking a lesson my junior and senior year. Now, my teachers out there, my orchestra, my band teachers were terrific, and they incorporated me as much as they could. But then my parents said, you know, when you're looking at schools, let's find a school that has a harp teacher. And so I told you a little bit about Colorado State. I was very lucky to find my college teacher, Suzanne Davis. Wonderful woman, wonderful just mentor, taught me a lot about life and just how to do it, you know, how to do contracts and how to negotiate with people and figure out what wedding music they want, all those kind of growing up things that you learn. In fact, the other day when I was sorting through my storage locker, I'll tell you about that at the end, I came across the LP of the record of the Nutcracker that I learned my first Nutcracker ballet music from. I would practice with the record. So anyway, let's see, what was the question you asked me? Marie said that too. I said, I'm not going to go on.
Well, that's okay. So no, we were just talking about how you actually got started playing the harp.
Yeah.
So
that's ninth grade, and then I stopped. I mean, I didn't do much, and then college. About my sophomore year was when the harp bug bit me. Although my degree is in music education, my parents made sure I did that. I never did teach in the classroom. I student taught, but I decided when the harp bug bit me, I wanted to play. So that's that. I don't know how smart that was, but I guess I bloomed where I was planted. So
sure.
Flute to harp.
So is there anything, well, first off, what do you enjoy about playing the harp? What is it that you really like about it?
Well, I think I like that it's unique. I think over the course of my many years of doing it, I have made the best friends that I have in my life because we share our instrument. I have my little harp right here, my big harp, I should say. Here's a little one over here, and I like the sound. It is calming. I like the. It certainly is not instant gratification, but I like the gratification of accomplishing something. I think over time, my wish for that has gotten less because I have done it. And I know how hard you have to work. It is a very difficult instrument. In fact, our teacher's teacher, Carlos Salcedo, was Alice Shaliku's teacher. Carlos Salcedo had sort of a maxim, and he said, you have to practice like the devil to play like an angel. And he's right about that. I know every instrument is difficult. I understand that Jerry said that last night. But the harp is, not only do you use your hands and your 8 fingers, you don't use the pinky. I don't know if you know that. You don't use your baby finger. It's too short. So we have to figure out ways, piano writing. That's why there's not a whole lot of Mozart. We only have one Mozart, and that's the concerto that poor Mr. Mozart was bribed basically to write. Poor guy. And Mozart had a lot of 5-finger passages, and we don't use 5 fingers, so we had to invent what we call a slide, slide on a string and make 5 sounds in a row. But we also use both of our feet. Our feet operate 7 pedals. There's 4 pedals on the right-hand side of the harp, and there's 3 pedals on the left-hand side. There's one pedal for each note of the scale. So when we change our accidentals, we have to move our pedals. And if you don't have the right pedals, you can really mess up a passage. And it should be all practiced so that it's all inside your whole being. Your brain not only fires your fingers, but it fires your feet too. So it's complicated. And coordination does help, So I like the fact that you can accomplish something. It is fun kind of after it's over. A lot of my colleagues say, oh, I had so much fun playing, Sleeping Beauty. Well, I don't think it's a lot of fun when you're, on the spot playing a solo. Like for me, for the Nutcracker, I played the Nutcracker over 400 times for the Cleveland Ballet. And every day I would sweat that cadenza. Every single time I would go over it, over it, over it, over it, because I never wanted my brain to stop remembering how it went. And it's stupid because you do it all the time. It's like rote, but sometimes your brain can let you down. And you might mess it up, and you don't want to do that. So I did practice that. So anyway, the sounds of it, the camaraderie with my colleagues is very high up there. I have dear, dear friends who are my harp friends. So
That's really nice. Is there anything unique, or is there an interesting backstory about your particular harp? You want to make up a
Not really, but I
backstory?
do have one. I do have a backstory about one of my instruments that's in my room. This particular harp came from Chicago, and there is a unique sound that I'll play for you right now. Glissando. That is like, the movie star Hollywood sound that everybody recognizes, and that is created by the way that we set our pedals. I told you about the pedals before. So we have many different configurations to make that kind of sound. I have a really cool story about an old harp that I have. It's beautiful. It's a little gold. It's smaller than this one, but this has 47 strings. The harp in the room down there has 44, maybe 45 strings. It's slightly smaller. It is made in 1903. And harps usually do not last that long. Harps are they wear out as they get older. Unless you maintain them, pristine, the wood cracks and it has issues. It has issues as it gets older. The mechanism, there's over 2,000 moving parts on a harp. And those mechanisms wear out. And so it's unusual that this harp is in my room. So what happened with that harp is I was contacted by Todd Wilson, who is very, very well known, I would say famous organist in our area. He runs the music department, he is head of the music at Trinity Cathedral in downtown Cleveland. Lovely person. I've worked with him many, many times. And Todd emailed me 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago now, about an instrument. He had a friend and wanted to look at a harp, blah, blah, blah. And I get those all the time, often, can you help me with an appraisal? Can you come over and see what shapes and that kind of thing? And I didn't really have time to do it, but I thought, for Todd, I would go over there. So I went over to this little house. It was all empty, and this little harp was in the corner with all these broken strings and everything. And the lady was moving from the house, and she could not take the harp with her. She wanted to find a good home. She also did not have the time to set up a donation to a school or 501c3 type thing. So I looked at it, and then Todd said, why don't you go back here and look at it again? So anyway, it ended up in the back of my car. They gave the harp to me. The ladies gave the harp to me, and I ended up having this lovely, sweet little harp that I did send back to Chicago. I didn't regild it because regilding a harp with gold leaf costs $15,000. I didn't have that kind of money, but yes, just the gold leaf. But I had them recondition it so that I could play on it. And they did a beautiful job, and they sent it back to me, and I had this sweet little wonderful sound harp in my room that was given to me by these people. And nothing was replaced on it. The board, the soundboard, the back is all original wood. The only thing that is new is the mechanism, which I can't show you. The part that I talked about, all the moving parts, that was replaced. It's absolutely the sweetest thing. So I used that harp at Christmas time under normal circumstances. For 20 years, I have played background music for the patients at the Cole Eye Institute during the month of December.
Oh,
and
nice.
I use that. It's a lovely job. I'm very grateful to Dan Martin and Dr. Laubert, who was my eye doctor. She thought of the idea 20 years ago when the ballet stopped. I was home to get the phone call Go figure that. And it's been a job for me for all of these years. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. But I use that harp in that setting, and it is the perfect sound. So that's my backstory on one of my harps.
And before we move on, I do have to give you credit. Every time we have a concert, and I see the viola player or the violin player just walking in with their little case. Then here you come having to take your harp with you everywhere. It's like, oh my goodness, that is quite a chore. So bravo to you on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a long time ago, my dad helped me when I was younger, and he said, honey, you gotta learn how to do this by yourself. And that's what I tell my students. I learned how to lift it, and I don't lift it as many stairs as I used to, but in grad school, I lived on the second floor, and I carried my harp up 2 flights of stairs all the time. No problem. I don't do that now, but I'm used to. We all have carts, and we all have our systems down. The van is got the bed in the back where it just lays down. That's an interesting little story when I get groceries. Okay, so here is the back of my car with lots of pillows and blankets. Those poor grocery guys that are putting the groceries, I go to Heinen's. So it's like a valet grocery store. They put the groceries in. You're not allowed to take your carts into the lot. And, they put the groceries in there. And I always say I play the harp because I don't know what they think of the pillows and the blankets.
Oh, my.
I always say I'm not homeless. I just want you to know that that's where I are. That's a funny side story, but it's the truth.
Yeah, no, that's good. So at what point did it kind of start to, formulate in your mind? It's like, I can really start to make a career out of being a musician.
I knew you were going to ask me that, and that is a very interesting question because I didn't really think about that. I just all of a sudden was doing it. That's what happened. I was a late bloomer. I didn't really learn how to play till I got to college. I mean, I had to start all over when my teacher, Suzanne Davis, got a hold of me. Then when she sent me to Alice Shalafu here in Cleveland at the Cleveland Institute of Music, I had to start all over again because our teacher, Ms. Shalafu, was very, very picky about our hands, very picky. And not only did I start, I wasn't allowed to give a recital my first year in grad school. I gave 2 recitals my second year because she was working on kind of retooling my technique. And that included also studying in Maine, on the coast of Maine, where I mentioned before, in the summers where she taught. So she said to me once, she said, dear, you just need to play the harp more. So I took that to heart. And when I returned, after I graduated from CIM in '82, I went back out to Colorado and taught for a couple of years at Colorado State, my school. And then there was a competition that I asked my teacher if I could, Alice Shallop, who's still my teacher. She's the only one after Mrs. Davis. I only had 2 teachers. I asked her if she would help me prepare for this competition. And she said she would. In retrospect, I really didn't have any. I shouldn't have done it, but I did it. And I'm really glad I did it because I learned a lot of music that fall. That was the same fall when I moved back here in 1984. I was preparing to go to this competition. Then the Akron Symphony audition happened in October, and so did the ballet opera OCO audition. So that happened at the same time. All of a sudden, I was earning money playing the harp. So and then I bloomed where I was planted. That's just sort of what happened. I did some auditions after that. I didn't make it very far in places that I went. At the same time, my work was expanding here, and a year and a half after Akron started, I started subbing in the Cleveland Orchestra in summer of 1986. I have a funny story about that summer. I was preparing for playing the Handel Concerto with the Ohio Chamber Orchestra in a small little setting in Kane Park in the summer. And I got a job playing, subbing, and it was in the orchestra, Cleveland Orchestra, playing pictures at an exhibition, only it was Vladimir Ashkenazy's arrangement. So I got to work with him that first summer. Well, long before I knew protocol, I was a happy-go-lucky. I was so happy to be there. I was playing second harp. I was not playing first harp. And I went up to Mr. Ashkenazy and I said, "Are you finished with me now?" You don't do that. You don't go up and ask the conductor. Unless you've been there a long time. And I said, I have to go rehearse, or my handle concerto's coming up. And well, he was very nice to me. He knew I was a youngster, not very well schooled in the rules. And he was very nice to me the next day. He came up and said, "How did your concerto go?" He was so kind, and let me off the hook on my protocol disaster there. But anyway, that was fun. So I started, my work was expanding, played in the summers, and then I continued to study. I did a lot of opera, I did a lot of ballet, and of course when those institutions closed, that's when you had to start being creative. Then I was hired by Cincinnati Symphony. I did a lot of commuting back and forth for about 10 years in the early 2000s. I did a lot of commuting, and then when my colleague Lisa Wellbaum retired from the Cleveland Orchestra, they moved my dear colleague Trina Struble, who's now principal. They moved her up, and they just filled that second spot with me. And then Trina auditioned and actually won the job as principal, and they still filled the second spot with me, and that's what I've been doing since for a long time. I have been very, very fortunate. Lots of touring and overseas, wonderful exposure. So that's been fun.
Yeah, that's really, really nice. So what are some of your favorite composers?
Well, of course, all the ones that use harp. we don't have any Beethoven. I can't speak of Haydn. Jerry was talking about listening to all the Haydn symphonies. I only thing I remember about Haydn pretty much is how to spell the name. I just didn't go for that because that was not my expertise. Ravel, Mahler, I like Mahler. Strauss, and I've become more fond of Strauss since I've been working with Franz Belstramos because he's Austrian, and then we've been doing lots of Strauss. And of course Debussy. Those are my standouts and Stravinsky. Especially Firebird. I was so lucky to go. My first European tour with the Cleveland Orchestra was the 3-harp version, the complete version of the Stravinsky Firebird. And Mr. Dochnani loved that Firebird. He programmed that all the time. And when he retired, I actually wrote him a thank you note saying, "Thank you for programming the Stravinsky Firebird as many times as you did," because I got to play 3rd harp and travel all over the world. So it was pretty fun.
Oh, that's nice. So kind of thinking of your time here with, with Akron, are there any memorable performances or moments, that stand out from your tenure with us?
Well, the one funny one was when I did the Mozart concerto with George Pope in 1987. I believe, and ask John Curtis about this, but I believe that the Mozart was the first half of the program, and then I think that Mr. Balter did the Beethoven Fifth Symphony on the second half of the program. There may have been an overture or something else. But I remember being so relieved that everything was over with and being backstage, and Joe Schreiber was with me. I'm positive he would vouch for this. But my harp cart fell over in the grand pause. It was like, da, 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 da. There was I was so embarrassed, but nobody knew it but Joe and I never told Alan Balter. I felt terrible because of the recording.
And of course, it has to fall right then.
It fell exactly on when he did the cutoff. I didn't see that cutoff, but I know it was. Anyway, so that was kind of a memorable moment for myself. But my playing moment was in 1997. I was asked to do. Well, it was a concert certainly that featured harp. I started out in the very front of the orchestra, very front I'm probably in front of the podium. Because E.J. Thomas is such a funny space to play in. I have to be out in front. I started out playing the Debussy dances. Then I moved back a little bit and played the Ravel Introduction and Allegro, 2 concertos. Then I went off stage, and I remember Joe helping me change my clothes. I mean, he didn't help me, and he just like, that's so funny. But he was helping me, get things squared away back there, changed into my black. Came back on stage, moved back a little further and played the Swan Lake Suite, which has a big harp cadenza. And then finally, the last piece on the program was the Petrushka. And so that was a big concert, obviously. And I just remember moving further and further back. And finally, I got back to my home base. And it felt really nice to be back there. It felt like a piece of cake. Petrushka was like a piece of cake after that. And I was going to tell you something else. Oh, so my colleagues all thought I was crazy because, that's a pretty large program for one player. So I remember doing that, and I'm really glad I did because Alan passed away the next year. So, and I got a chance to do the WC with Chris Wilkins as well, and that was also very memorable and pleasurable experience. So I like, and also one other memory of Chris is when he was trying out, auditioning, whatever, having a trial. We played them, maybe it was Scheherazade or something, and it was so nice to be able to play out. I often have times conductors say, that's hard. I don't know why, but they do. But Chris doesn't. He likes that. So that's fun. That's a fun part. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So outside, obviously rehearsing is, the big thing you have to do, but outside of rehearsing, is there anything else you do to prepare for a performance? Is there, do you have a ritual you go through on the day of a concert, or, is there a meal you have to eat? Do we have any superstitions?
No superstitions. I'm just, in real time, in real days, when we were doing, getting from one place to another, I'm just always happy to, arrive with enough time, have my harp, have my checklist of things, my bench, my stool, my strings, my tuner, music, all of that. I'm just glad to get there and have time to cool down. And sometimes I pray. I'll go to the bathroom and I'll just say, "Dear Lord, get me through this concert." And if I have something that's really, I've learned quickly, or, for example, like the Berlioz, that everything has to line up in your brain exactly right, I say prayers. So, and I'll eat a banana once in a while if I have a big cadenza, or if I have something that I really focus on. I don't know if that's superstitious, maybe. But no, I'm just happy to be there and have time to tune. And no special meal. I could actually make sure I have protein and some kind of chicken or something. But I'm not superstitious about it. If I have to play, and I know I have to play, and I haven't eaten all day or whatever, I do it. It just comes out. So.
Okay. So outside of orchestral music, what would we find on your playlist? What kind of music do you listen to? Do you enjoy?
I don't listen to music. I don't. You're gonna laugh. So I listen to music to study from. That's all. I always have a recording of what I'm gonna play. And as Jerry said, if it's new, you don't. But I'm always listening to what I've got to play next. But other than that, if I need to stay awake on a long road trip, I have a recording of Chicago and Barbra Streisand.
Okay, that's very good.
So that's about it. I don't listen to music because I play music for a living. My ears are just, I don't do it.
No, that's interesting. That's that's an interesting way to look at it. So, all right. So, since we don't listen to music very often, what are our hobbies and any kind of interest outside of performing, outside of work, or anything that you do just to kind of, especially nowadays with not being able to perform how do you stay centered? What are you doing to keep your mind, your mind busy?
Well, that's a good question. I would be remiss if I didn't say that I've been listening to my mom play the piano. It's not been a whole lot of harp in the family the last several months, but she has been sitting at the piano and playing a lot of old music that we found this summer that was my grandmother's. And it has been most enjoyable. It's also, really great for her. She grew up as a youngster playing a lot of hymns. So I listened to hymns. So I do listen to music. I listen to hymns. I listen to her play these old tunes, and I just wanted to say that because it has been very, very nice for her. She hasn't, she's gravitated to doing that more than now that I haven't been, in my harp room at 11 o'clock at night practicing. Yeah, I haven't missed that part. I have to say, in part of your question has brought up those thoughts of, in the beginning when we all stopped, I didn't know what was going to happen to me and all of my performing colleagues. It was just, we were all just deer in the headlights because we were so driven. Every single, hour was devoted to, okay, I have to prepare this for Friday. I've got a concert. It was all completely computerized in the brain. And to have that complete shutdown of that part of our existence was a very difficult, like a train stopping, lurching, difficult. It took me a couple of weeks to get my feet on the ground. And I'll tell you what helped me was my teaching. I teach at 4 schools, and I have a wonderful class of students. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that has helped me through this time. It has been the centerpiece of this time. My dad I keep referring to my father, but he did instill me with a lot of good advice. And he said, dear, you're going to last longer teaching than you are playing. And those words were never truer than they were to me in March and subsequent months, and now, and probably in the future. I take those to heart, and I have embraced that time with my students. I've learned how to do it online, and everybody has made great progress. It's been amazing. They gave a little Zoom recital at the end of July. So, the CIMers, and I have a couple students at Baldwin Wallace, harp majors out there. One girl's preparing her senior recital. I have a freshman that I want to, start tailoring, and it's been really fun. I'm teaching at Malone University and Cleveland State. I have a student there too. So it's been very enjoyable. As far as other things, I mentioned to you on the phone a few weeks ago when we talked that I have had the opportunity to do things this summer that did not involve protecting my hands. For example, in the old days, I would only be able to do a little bit of gardening because I couldn't stress my hands out digging or pulling or whatever because I have to go practice or play a concert or something. This summer, since I was not responsible for any music coming out of my harp, I took the opportunity to sort my family storage lockers, and I reduced them from 3 to 1. And it took me 10 weeks, but I got it done, and I have had a chance to reflect upon my past. So it's been really fun. And also then I've been able to garden as well. I've been out there a lot. I know that Marilyn talked about her gardening projects. I'm not growing vegetables because I have animals here in the country. They eat stuff. I'm lucky that my flowers survive, but I have been having a lot of fun moving things around, and we have nicknames for gardens. For example, there's one little spot on the side of my yard that the lawn people were taking the grass clippings, and it really was on our neighbor's property. And I told them not to do that. So I put stakes in front, and then I planted a bunch of plants there, and I call it my DMZ garden. That's demilitarized. And then I have another garden that my mom nicknamed the SAP garden, Save All Plants. So, we laugh a lot in this house. We try.
That's really good. So
So,
we are coming up almost to the end of our time here together. So before we finish up, you had the opportunity to ha- play at our, I think it was actually our first interlude event of the
yeah,
season. You were at the Summit Historical Society. Can you talk a little bit about how that
yeah.
went?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I had a great time. First of all, it was so wonderful to see Paul, and I was able to tell him in person how much I love his idea of our season, and it's just been so innovative, and I'm so proud of. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of us. It's been delightful to share our story. So when I drove up, we all had our masks on, and I couldn't recognize him. But then he took it off, and here I am driving in, and so I had to haul the harp over the grass. It was a little bumpy, but it was delightful. And I did my usual background music, which is, nice for me because it was low stress. I got to play Happy Birthday a couple times for the dog, and I don't know if your listeners know about what happened, but it was a border collie's birthday party. One of their border collies at the Summit County Historical Society. They have the movie Babe, where the border collie tends to the sheep. They were doing a demonstration that day and featuring Rudy, who turned 13. So it was Rudy's birthday, and they had cake and all these people. It was a lot of fun. Everybody stayed, apart from each other, except for families, of course. And it was delightful. I had a wonderful time. Really good. And I'm going to be at Hale Farm on October 10th.
Okay, yeah, we have a lot of good and interesting
A lot
events
of
coming
people.
up. Mhm. So, all right, I think we've said it all.
We're
Is there
finished.
anything left to say?
Okay. Well, I didn't think I was going to be as chatty, but here we are.
No,
Thank
this
you
was
for making me feel comfortable, and I hope this was fun for people. I don't get a chance to tell my Meredith Wilson story very often, but when I do, I love that story. And I think of my dad, So, and really, my parents are responsible for me doing what I'm doing. I happen to love what I do. I'm so lucky. I am so lucky to love what I do, and I hope it comes out in what I do, how I talk, how I
I
act.
think it does. I mean, if you're passionate about something, I think people can really tell. So, thank you, Jody, for taking time today to talk with us. Thank you to everyone who watched. This
Okay.
is the ASO Conversation series. If you like what we're doing, please like, share, let people know so that you can keep watching. And we will be back soon. Everybody stay safe.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.